Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cinema A to B. Today, Alec, this is a good one. Skyfall, the 2012 Bond film with Daniel Craig and shot by our favorite DP on the pod, Mr. Roger Deakins, and directed by a heck of a director in Sam Mendes.
So this is my favorite Daniel Craig Bond film by far. In a lot of different ways. I really like Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace was good. Spectre was fine. And No Time to Die was also fine. But this kind of, something resonated with me with this. I mean, some of it obviously is I think Javier Bardem is an amazing actor and plays a really good bad guy. You have a couple moments of transition and it feels a lot more of a personal film for Bond in this, as opposed to some of the other ones. It's less about the entire world and more about his character, so I think kind of continues to bring kind of where they started with Casino Royale of kind of him getting his, second kill and become a 00 to kind of at this point where he's truly become Bond, like he's wrestled with some of his past or wrestled with kind of some of his, feelings of authority with M and those kind of things and kind of dealt with the whole scenario. But this film is gorgeous. And obviously Sam Mendes, I'm going to talk about it, but I feel like some of the shots in here are precursors to what he does in 1917, many years later, because man, when he's in Scotland and things are on fire, I really got a lot of that same feeling that you did when the guys were in that city that was getting like shelled out in flares or whatever, like kind of the descent into hell kind of feel to it. And like this felt not the exact same, but felt very close to that.
Yeah. So this is a Roger Deakins technique, and it's been used in more than just those two films.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Because the same way that he created the fire in Skyfall and then flares and frankly fire in 1917, he also used to create the fire of the oil well sequences in Jarhead.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also another collaboration between Mendes and Deakins. And so he uses these huge grids of light, extremely powerful lights, and they're a very vibrant yellowy orange, and they've got a flicker effect to them. And then they typically CGI the fire in post. The flame's usually not even really there. And he reuses it again and again. In fact, I think there's more than 3 of these films that Deakins has done where he's used this technique of, because what you do is you get that amazing effect where everybody's silhouetted against flame. And it's exquisite.
Yeah.
I think the stuff in Skyfall is my favorite when I'm thinking about that, as far as the fire.
Mm-hmm.
The flare sequence in 17 is great, but yeah, as far as them being backlit and their silhouettes against flame, I think you're right. I think Skyfall's like the best of the bunch.
So the opening sequence is really good, like the kind of like quick little scenario that then sets up everything. While this is my favorite of the 5 films that Craig has done, I think the opening sequence of Casino Royale is actually my favorite. That little like section where he's, running across construction stuff or whatever, like that kind of individual one. I really like that one, I think, the most.
And isn't the opening credit sequence for Casino with Chris Cornell?
Yes, that is. Yes, Chris Cornell did that one. Yeah.
And then this is Adele. This is Adele for Skyfall, which is really good too. So
no, and it's good. Oh, so I meant I'm not the opening sequence crawl, even though
right. No,
yes,
you mean
Chris
the
Cornell,
opening action sequence.
Yeah. So but this one's really, obviously really good. The whole train sequence, the launching basically himself a motorbike over top of a railing to get onto the train. Like that's just a cool moment.
They are. Now, was there ever a time where Casino Royale was your favorite? Or has it always been Skyfall?
Obviously, until I saw Skyfall, I preferred Casino Royale over.
Okay, there was somebody else that I was conversing with about these that I think their favorite is Casino Royale, and it's about 50-50 with people I talk about on which and it's between those two films. It's not Spectre, it's not Quantum, and then it's not No Time to Die. This is also my favorite of the Craig Bond films, and I think this might be my favorite Bond film, period. Yeah.
I can see that.
I know everybody usually points to like something like Goldfinger as kind of the quintessential Bond, and I appreciate that. And it does predate this obviously by decades, and so it's kind of first on the scene, but this to me feels like kind of Bond perfected. But I have to give a tip of the cap to Goldeneye because Javier Bardem's character feels like a refresher, kind of even better version of 006 played by Sean Bean. And so it's like they weren't afraid to revisit that, him going up against another 00. Now, unfortunately, they kind of ruined that with the sequels with making Bardem's character like another pawn basically in the machine, which I didn't like. I thought that lessened him. It would have made more sense to me if he was just operating as this rogue agent by himself and it didn't answer to anybody. So I feel like the sequels kind of hurt his character in a lot of ways when they kind of retconned him almost, because it didn't. Maybe that was the direction they were planning on going the whole time, but it felt like a retcon and it wasn't a good one.
No. Retcons very rarely are.
Yeah, this was 2012. This was the same year as Dark Knight Rises. And those were the two films that I had the great expectations with. I think I'd had higher expectations for Dark Knight Rises than this. And this ended up being my favorite film from 2012. And it was because you kind of touched on it. It was because it got really, really intimate at the end. It got small. It didn't try to get bigger. It didn't try to have a bigger set piece than like Spectre. They went really micro in the estate at Skyfall. And I was kind of hoping that Dark Knight Rises would have done the same thing and went more micro at the end. I think it would have, I don't know, it just felt more powerful, like more emotionally. I think I would have been able to connect with it better. But this was the movie that I resonated with more. And yeah, that moment when they stop in the Highlands and kind of step out for a little bit and kind of have a conversation about his upbringing and being brought into the fold. And then there's that low drone kind of ambient score that kicks in and they travel off, and it's like the tone shifts completely in the film. And I remember sitting in the theater going, this is the moment where this film is transcending being a Bond film into something else entirely. Yeah. And that's how I feel about Skyfall. I feel like it's one of the better movies ever made in the action kind of spy genre. It just happens to be a Bond movie, because I think it feels like it goes above and beyond what anybody even had ever envisioned for James Bond.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of the few that really delves into him and makes it personal for him. Most of the other ones, again, he's saving the world or doing something else, but it's that getting that micro of going back to his roots, kind of learning about some of these tidbits of, when he's talking with Albert Finney, not him, but when Dame Judi Dench is talking with Albert Finney about, and he's just like, after his parents died, he went kind of in these catacombs or whatever, this hiding place for 2 days, and when he came out, he was no longer a boy, or something along that statement along those lines. I do find it interesting that he actually tried to. He was basically done with Bond after this. Like, I think they had to talk him into doing 2 more. And there's even that statement when he's talking with Ralph Fiennes about. I think Rafe was like, "You're like getting too old for this," or that's not the phrase, but it's kind of that feeling of, you're getting too old for this, and kind of I thought that was a nice little nod of, especially if it was going to be his exit film. But obviously came back for more, probably nice paychecks or something else. I know he did a couple interviews where Daniel Craig was talking about the fact that he's like, I can't do anymore. It's too tough. You get, doing your own stunts, you get hurt doing these fight scenes, you get hurt. And the age I am, it takes a lot longer to kind of get back to those. Or, I start hurting myself in ways that just don't heal right anymore.
After about 35, like, it takes us guys quite a bit longer to heal up from injuries. Like, you don't typically just bounce back. And he was well into his 40s and then 50 plus, pushing for at least one of the last two. And he was in, peak physical condition. But even at that age, like, yeah, the toll. And because he is the most physical Bond we've ever had. What he was asked to do is so far beyond anybody else. Anybody. I mean, Connery's kind of known as the OG physical Bond as far as more fighting, like hand-to-hand kind of stuff versus like Roger Moore. And then Dalton had some stunt work too, but only got 2 shakes at it before they kind of cut the cord on that. And so, yeah, I don't blame him for not wanting to suit up again and put his body through that, because it is brutal. I was just watching looking at the upcoming documentary about Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double from Harry Potter that got paralyzed on one of the last 2 movies.
Oh my goodness.
It's about his relationship with him, and he's helped him out and stuff. Yeah, he's in a wheelchair. I don't remember which. It was one of the Deathly Hallows movies. A stunt went horribly wrong. Yeah, this stuff gets dangerous in a hurry. And that is a director and a producer's number one responsibility, by the way, is the safety of their cast and crew. The rest of it doesn't matter. If somebody gets hurt or killed on your set, it's game over.
But going back, so apparently there was a rumor that Albert Finney's character, the caretaker of the Bond estate, was actually supposed to be Sean Connery. They had wanted to reach out and ask Sean Connery to do it, but they decided not to because they felt 2 things. One, Sean Connery was retired at the time, but pull him out he would distract from the film, pull people out of the film. And also, he was also a Bond. Would he even come back to play another character that's not Bond in a Bond film, So,
well, they've toyed with that whole thing before, that James Bond in and of itself is a code name.
Yeah.
And that the 00 status is just attached to the code name as well. It's just a code name, and then they die, and then there's another Bond. And we're going to have to speculate on where this is all going. I mean, I've got my theories. I think the hottest one still is that they want to go back to a period 50s Bond and reboot it in
you
the
think
50s.
Nolan would do a
that's
period?
Been the rumor, is that is kind of his brainchild, is that's what, if he's going to do Bond, that's how he wants to do it. He wants to do it very close adherence to the books, put it back in the original time period of the books during the Cold War, shoot it in IMAX, huge conventional stunt work. That's all over Reddit. The rumors are hot on this. If they opted to do that, it would be tremendous. I have no doubt it would be absolutely tremendous. The only thing you would have to fix is he can't, I don't think he can womanize the way
he did back.
Gosh, yeah, go back and watch Goldfinger and watch freaking Connery throw Pussy Galore down into the barn and like put himself on top of her. It's super awkward.
It's one of those movies that's like, oh, I can't watch this anymore. This is
I can still watch it, but like that scene's just like, whoa. Yeah. They'd have to change some sensibilities with the character, but I still think they could set it in the 50s if they wanted. But back to Skyfall.
So Deakins has done what with Sam Mendes? He did obviously this, 1917. What else did he do with Sam Mendes? Because Mendes apparently seems to really like the same people, because he's worked with Thomas Newman, the composer, for almost every movie he's done. So I think Sam is one of those people who just kind of finds those movies he likes and just continually uses them, which is, I mean, obviously not different than a lot of people. Like Nolan does the same thing where he uses a lot of the same people for all his stuff until you snub him, and then he never talks to you ever again, apparently.
Yeah. It's not a long list. I mean, it's 1917. Like I said, it's Jarhead.
That's right, Jarhead.
And you talk about a guy that's always in constant demand. It's Deakins. I mean, he gets to pick what he shoots. He does not just take a job. By the way, totally going to push that Team Deakins podcast. If somebody is not listening to that podcast that Roger does with his wife, James, together, and they interview directors, actors, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. So Team Deakins podcast is good, really good. And we feel like he is the best working cinematographer right now.
Hands down. I agree. I mean, just some of the stuff that he's done is just absolutely.
It's interesting. For some reason, I was thinking that Deakins had done Spectre since Mendes did Spectre, but they didn't do that together. So it was a different. I
think he was probably working on like Sicario or Hail Caesar at the time.
Yep.
Which Sicario is just an absolutely amazingly shot film as well. Like you could see Deakins just doing an amazing. That's
the other rumored guy to direct a Bond film is Denis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could see Denis doing it, but he's so wrapped up in Dune right now. I guess they'd have to wait till he's all done.
So guess who the DP is for Spectre? Hoyt van Hoytema, the Nolan's director of photography now. So I mean, these guys just run in the same circles. That's all that's going on. And Hoyt obviously shot Tenet and Oppenheimer, and then he also shot Ad Astra.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
and Dunkirk. So, these circles are small, especially at the top of the heap. These guys are the best in their specific category, position. Yeah, I just feel like Skyfall knows when to go really big and then really, really small, and that's just good screenwriting. And I like the fact that he's as vulnerable as Bond as he'll be in any since the original time. He's like basically poisoned in Casino Royale, but physically he's just falling apart. Like I love that scene with Bardem where he's like, "What did you get on your marksmanship score?" He's like 75. Nope. 37 or whatever it is. He's like,
it's like 40.
Yeah. Yeah, like just runs down the litany of stuff that's wrong with him.
And then it changes, Yeah.
I mean, she lied to you.
Dude, Javier
Bardem's something else, man.
He always is absolutely amazing.
He has as much to do with why Skyfall is my favorite. Because I think he's the best Bond villain of them all.
He plays that I'm angry, want revenge, but I also want approval, and I'm like... And also crazy like no one else. Like, I mean, the whole thing, like when he finally gets like M, at one point where he's just kind of like is concerned for her well-being for a hot second. You're just like, wait, what? Like you are crazy. And Javier just does it so well. Just does that kind of that character. He plays a villain. I mean, obviously, in No Country, he does an amazing job. I mean, and for the 5 minutes he's in Collateral, he steals the show.
The way he's able to change his physicality is really quite incredible. And obviously, he's got a mouth prosthetic thing in for Skyfall as Silva to kind of change. It changes the shape of his jaw and face, and they bleach his hair and stuff. But even the way he carries himself is completely different from No Country or anything else. Like his physicalities, he's able to change that along with the performance. But yeah, I mean, And there's nice little moments of levity too in Skyfall with him, where he's like all rubbing up on Daniel Craig and oh, is this your first time? Craig's like, who said it was my first time? And he's like, oh, Mr. Bond. Yeah, their interplay is really good. I don't know how they would have kept a straight face during that scene where he's like really close to him, how they wouldn't have just been laughing through take after take.
I'm sure there was some of that. I'm sure there was some nice outtakes of them. The only thing that throws me in this entire movie is when M gets the computer or whatever, or the device from Bond and stuff like that and he brings it back into like headquarters and he starts plugging it in using like all the systems. I'm like you wouldn't do that. Like just
yeah.
You're too smart. Like, I mean, obviously, maybe he's like the overconfidence of, Q thought, he could handle it and stuff or didn't expect it. But I don't know. I know enough people who do hack and they're like, no, that would never have touched our system. Like it would have been completely in its own little, like,
that's a total plot device to get them to have to go to that underground, the old school facility. That's
open everything up and
the original MI6. Yeah, that's all that is, was a plot device to get them out of there. And it worked. I don't know. But I was probably fully invested by that point, that I was just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because the thing moves at a breakneck pace.
It does.
And it's almost 2.5 hour movie. I mean,
it doesn't feel it.
2 hours, 23. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's going to be hard to top. I mean, this is where the bar is set basically for Bond. And No Time to Die was a good film. Like I enjoyed it. It felt like it was, of the recent kind of final entries on some stuff, it's probably one of the better ones, to be honest. It was better than the final installment of the Bourne film. It was better than but this isn't a pod on No Time to Die. No. And we're not doing a Daniel Craig Bond retrospective, even though that's what this is starting to sound like.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you really can't talk about one without, referencing some of the others. So,
yeah, and it's a credit that they, feel relatively well connected. I thought Quantum of Solace is kind of a waste of time, but it had so much promise, and just, I think it got rushed into production, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I think he said as much, that the script was like basically incomplete.
But it did definitely have the scariest premise about controlling water and such. So that's right. With Solace, like that, out of all of the ones, like that one had the scariest premise to me. The one that, kind of is happening, people buying up water rights, or,
the villains were weak as all get out in that one though.
Oh yeah. There was a lot. It was a very flawed film. There was a lot that was wrong with that film. Where this one is tight. Like I'm trying to think of like, where would I cut your requisite 10, 20 minutes, need to cut. Like, I don't feel like this one needs it.
No. And can I say that Naomie Harris is just tremendous in all these Bond films? Like, she's so good. They should just keep her. if they want to do more of them. Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. Yeah. And I was fine with the transition of Rafe to M as well.
Yeah, they handled that well. It was a really nice send off for Dench. They played to that really well, like that whole duality of the fact that they're killing off the character, but then you as a viewer are saying goodbye to her in the role at the same time. Super manipulative, by the way, but like that's kind of what film is, and that really worked on both levels. Of like, oh, the character's dying. This is a moving moment. Oh, I'm not going to see her play M anymore either. Well,
and I think that point exactly is kind of why I say like Bond becomes Bond at the end of this film. Like he we talk a lot about in Casino Royale about, he goes from, getting his first 2 kills to falling in love and then losing kind of that trust of women altogether and kind of, becoming the womanizer that James Bond is. Honestly, I feel like Judi Dench's M is his last kind of vestige of a younger self or a connected person, because he has so much. Not love is not the right word, but he always kind of had that interplay throughout all the other movies with her, of like going into her flat or pissing her off, kind of maybe not so much a mother figure, but some type of like guardian authority figure in his life, that when she dies, he's kind of done. Like, this is, I have no more personal connections to anything. I'm just now a weapon for Britain, kind of a thing.
Right. And they let the character kind of exist in that space for quite a bit of Spectre before they introduce the next love interest. And then obviously No Time to Die is kind of the culmination of that. Kind of brings it's kind of a nice arc, because they bring humanity back to Bond before they close it out. So is it a little clunky along the way? Yeah, there's some entries that just don't hit quite as well as others, and Spectre's largely forgettable for me, other than kind of establishing that romantic element for him. It's a pretty amazing 5-film run.
Yeah. I mean, they have a pretty decent arc for a James Bond character. He definitely grows from Casino to No Time to Die. So
yeah,
it's a nice.
Casino's excellent. This one's excellent.
I would say
and
No
then
Time.
Some other ones are good.
No Time would be my third out of the 5, I think. And then I think Spectre and Solace are both kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
So this has turned into a retrospective of Daniel Craig as James Bond.
Couldn't help ourselves.
With a focus on Skyfall.
With a focus on Skyfall. Well, thanks for helping me write the synopsis for the episode. I appreciate it.
There we go. Done. And that's my contribution to the show. So I'm going to touch really quick before we sign off. I want to touch base kind of something you said earlier. I was thinking about like the whole retconning going on that happened with like Spectre or whatever, and kind of how that took you out of it. It was kind of some of the same thing with Rises did with the storyline with Dark Knight Rises, that changed the ending of Dark Knight, that lessened and cheapened that moment of what Batman did to kind of become the bad guy in the eyes of the town, so they could have that white knight, and then it completely changes, kind of gets thrown away, which then makes Rises. I mean, there's a lot that I had felt was flawed with Rises, but that was one of the things that really didn't like either. Was then like you had such this great moment that you then kind of diminished it in the other ones, kind of like what you're saying, like you had this great moment or this great bad guy, this villain that you then diminished, which then cheapens and lessens this film. And I mean, it's something that happens a lot in film, where you go back and retcon, like, oh, we have this great idea. Oh, I mean, we need to then change. I mean, we talked about The Matrix a couple weeks ago. They did it with the films where at the end of the first Matrix, basically, Neo is flying around. He's doing all this stuff, like he's unbeatable. So how do you make that an interesting film where he has some type of like something that's going to hurt him if he's unbeatable in this? So you have to kind of, retcon it and change it to make him, oh, well, he did do this, but he's really not completely this yet. So, and I think that sometimes you just got to move on, or, let it lie. Just, you don't need to add anything more stuff. Just change it up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a screenwriter's particularly obsessed with the previous entry influencing what they're working on. Not when you're under deadline and you're trying to get something good out. I don't think that thought process occurs very often, unless it was a trilogy that was completely pre-planned, which so few are. Not everything can be Lord of the Rings, and most studios aren't willing to risk it all to do 2 or 3 movies at the same time anymore anyway. So yeah, things kind of do get affected. But yeah, you're right. That was the big one, was Silva just not being quite the dangerous, like freelancing guy that they portrayed him to be. So
just another pawn.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. Doesn't doesn't fit who we saw in Skyfall at all. So it's not even a good, like it's a bad retcon because it damages it, but it's not even really justified. So that's fine. These are just movies. I can still enjoy Skyfall. I don't have to worry about the follow-up.
We can just have Skyfall be the end. That's it. That's done. You know, there we go. And he moves on. Don't need to watch Spectre in no time. Because honestly speaking, Skyfall does have that feeling of completeness, of like end of the Daniel Craig story, you know, Bond storyline. It doesn't feel like I don't really feel there's much in the way of, you know, left open for more stuff.
No, I mean, I guess they left Spectre hanging out there, but the fact that they largely ignored it for a whole movie is kind of wild. Mm-hmm. They must have been that strong of believers in the script that they had with, and having Javier attached to say, well, we don't really even need to address Spectre for a full film because we've got this. This is so compelling. So it's a good one. It's a good one. They got their work cut out for them. We'll see.
We'll see where it goes.
Where we go from here. Yeah. Any parting words of wisdom on Skyfall?
No, that
if you know what that would be, but
yeah. Just, you know, in response to the word Skyfall, done.
You
know, the word association game or whatever you're talking about. That's what he said. He's just like, Skyfall, done. Good stuff.
All right, man. Well, we are going to sign off, and we will be back next week with another episode. What is it? I probably know, but I don't know because there's enough of these in the can that we just get to pick at random what everybody
with dartboard.
Gets.
We're just like, okay,
we do work ahead. We do work ahead. Yeah. We do not. I think we've got quite a few of these. By the time this was recorded, there was quite a few things in the hopper. So we do appreciate everybody listening, though. And
thank you.
The big takeaway for this podcast that we want is, we want you to watch more movies, and then we want you to have more fun conversations about movies. And that's all this is about. And go see something good.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.